The morning started like any other on Earth until every screen, every radio, and every communication device across the planet simultaneously activated with the same message. Scientists scrambled to understand how the signal had bypassed every security system and reached every electronic device on the planet at once. The image that appeared was terrifying in its alien magnificence. A creature standing 12 feet tall, with forearms ending in razor-sharp claws, skin that seemed to absorb light itself, and eyes that glowed with an inner fire. Behind it, a massive fleet of ships stretched across the darkness of space, their hulls gleaming with weapons that defied human understanding. "Primitive inhabitants of the third planet," the creature began, its voice carrying harmonics that made human bones vibrate uncomfortably. "I am Supreme Commander Vorthak of the Hegemony. Your species has been observed. You have been measured. You have been found lacking." The creature's forearms gestured dramatically as holographic displays showed Earth from space, surrounded by thousands of alien vessels. Each ship was larger than Earth's biggest cities, their surfaces bristling with energy cannons and devices that seemed to bend space around them. You consume resources without consideration. You wage war upon each other for trivial reasons. You poison your own atmosphere and destroy your ecosystem. Worst of all, you have begun to reach beyond your world with your primitive vessels, threatening to spread your chaos to other systems. In the United Nations building in New York, world leaders watched in stunned silence as the message continued. Military commanders across the globe frantically tried to locate the source of the transmission, but their efforts proved futile. The signal seemed to originate from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The galactic hegemony has decided that your species represents a threat to civilized space. You will cease all space exploration immediately. You will reduce your population by 90% within one standard galactic year. You will submit to hegemony oversight and accept the installation of our monitoring stations on your world." The Supreme Commander's image leaned forward, its glowing eyes seeming to stare directly at each viewer. "If you refuse these terms, if you resist our benevolent guidance, we will demonstrate why 5,000 species across this galaxy have learned to fear the hegemony's displeasure. Your cities will burn, your oceans will boil, your species will join the countless others who learned too late that defiance is futile." As the message played, observatories around the world confirmed what many had hoped was an elaborate hoax. The ships were real, massive structures hung in space just beyond Earth's moon, their presence confirmed by every telescope and satellite that could be aimed in their direction. The vessels were so large they were visible to the naked eye as new stars in the night sky. You have 7 of your days to broadcast your acceptance across your global communication networks. Failure to comply will result in the complete sterilization of your world. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is your final warning. The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Then the chaos erupted. Stock markets crashed as panic selling consumed every exchange. Emergency sessions were called in every major government. Religious leaders proclaimed everything from the end times to humanity's test from higher powers. But in the halls of power, something unexpected was happening. Instead of the panic and submission the hegemony expected, Earth's leaders were doing something that would surprise the galaxy. They were gathering information, making plans, and preparing a response that no alien species had ever given to the hegemony's ultimatums. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's top xenobiologist, studied the transmission for the 100th time in the emergency United Nations session. "There's something they don't understand about us," she said quietly to the assembled world leaders. "They see our wars, our conflicts, our environmental damage, and they think they understand our nature. But they're missing something crucial." General Marcus Thompson, head of the Global Defense Initiative, nodded grimly. "They see our fighting as primitive chaos. They don't realize what we're really capable of when we have a common enemy." President Maria Santos leaned forward in her chair. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," Dr. Chen replied with a smile that would have terrified the hegemony had they seen it, "that we show them what humanity is really made of. They want our surrender in 7 days. Instead, let's give them an answer they'll never forget." As night fell across Earth, something remarkable was happening. The same species that the aliens claimed was too chaotic and primitive to survive was beginning to unite in ways that had never been seen before. Old enemies were setting aside differences. Nations that had been at war for decades were sharing intelligence and resources. In secret military installations, Scientists were analyzing every frame of the alien transmission. In hidden bunkers, engineers were reverse engineering principles from the brief glimpses of alien technology. In command centers across the globe, strategies were being developed that would soon shock an unsuspecting galaxy. The hegemony expected fear. They expected submission. They expected humanity to beg for mercy like every other species they had ever encountered. Instead, they were about to discover why humans had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars. They were about to learn that threatening humanity's home was the worst mistake they could possibly make. While the world's media focused on panic and preparation for surrender, something extraordinary was happening in the shadows. Within hours of the hegemony's ultimatum, every major military power on Earth had begun implementing protocols that had been theoretical exercises just days before. Dr. Elena Volkov, Russia's leading physicist, worked alongside Dr. James Harrison from NASA in a facility that technically didn't exist. Around them, the brightest minds from every nation collaborated on projects that would have seemed impossible a week ago. The threat of extinction had accomplished what decades of diplomacy could not: true global cooperation. The quantum signature analysis is complete, Dr. Harrison announced to the assembled team. Their ships use a form of exotic matter we've only theorized about. But here's the interesting part. The energy readings suggest they're not as invincible as they want us to believe. Colonel Yuki Tanaka from Japan's Self-Defense Force studied the data carefully. What do you mean? Their shields operate on rotating frequencies. It's sophisticated, but it follows predictable patterns. More importantly, their weapons seem designed for planetary bombardment, not ship-to-ship combat. They've never faced an opponent that could fight back in space. Meanwhile, in a secure facility beneath the Swiss Alps, representatives from every space agency on Earth worked frantically to coordinate humanity's hidden assets. What the hegemony didn't know was that Earth's space capabilities were far more advanced than publicly acknowledged. Director Zhang, Wei from the Chinese National Space Administration, pulled up classified files that showed the true scope of human space operations. We have 17 military satellites with kinetic bombardment capabilities. The Americans have their classified X-37 derivatives. The Europeans have those research stations that aren't quite what they seem. Admiral Rebecca Foster from the United States Space Force nodded. The question is whether we can coordinate a strike before they realize we're not planning to surrender. In Australia, Dr. Aboriginal physicist William Namatjira made a breakthrough that would change everything. Working with quantum computers, he had been analyzing the alien transmission not for its message, but for its method of delivery. They had to tap into our communication networks to broadcast simultaneously, he explained to his international colleagues via encrypted quantum link. But that means they created a two-way connection. We can trace it back. Within 36 hours of the ultimatum, Earth had accomplished something unprecedented. Every major military installation was connected through quantum encrypted networks. Weapons that had been pointed at each other for decades were being retargeted toward space. Scientists who had competed for resources were sharing breakthrough discoveries in real time. But the most significant development was happening in the minds of humanity itself. Social media, instead of spreading panic, had become a coordination tool. Civilians were organizing support networks. Engineers were volunteering classified information. Hackers from rival nations were working together to strengthen Earth's digital defenses. The hegemony's spies, embedded in human society for months, reported back to their commanders with growing confusion. Instead of the expected chaos and submission, they were observing unprecedented unity and preparation. Their reports were dismissed as impossible. No species had ever responded to hegemony ultimatums with anything but terror and compliance. Supreme Commander Vorthak reviewed the intelligence reports from his flagship, the Subjugator. His forearms gestured dismissively at the holographic displays showing human activity. Primitive creatures gathering in groups, he told his subordinates. They are probably performing religious rituals before accepting their fate. Some species react to impending conquest with superstitious behavior. His intelligence officer, a scaled creature from the Saurian worlds, expressed doubt. Commander, our deep cover operatives report unusual military coordination. They appear to be preparing some form of resistance. Vorthak's laugh was like grinding metal. Resistance? With what weapons? We have observed their primitive chemical rockets and simple energy weapons. Their most advanced vessels couldn't penetrate our point defense systems. Let them play at resistance. It will make their inevitable surrender more satisfying. What the hegemony didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this moment longer than they realized. Not consciously, but through every conflict, every technological advancement, every hard-won lesson in survival. Humanity had been developing the tools and mindset needed to face an existential threat. In hidden facilities around the world, those tools were being refined into something that would soon surprise the galaxy. Kinetic kill vehicles were being equipped with AI guidance systems that could adapt to alien countermeasures. Quantum computers were calculating strike patterns that would overwhelm even advanced alien defenses. Most importantly, human creativity was being applied to warfare in ways that the rigidly hierarchical hegemony could never anticipate. The clock was ticking toward the 7-day deadline, but Earth wasn't preparing for surrender. They were preparing for war, and they were about to remind the galaxy why humans had clawed their way to the top of the food chain on one of the most dangerous planets in the known universe. As the second day ended, reports were coming in from every continent. The preparations were ahead of schedule. Weapons were being moved into position. Communication networks were hardened against alien interference. And perhaps most importantly, 8 billion humans were united by a single purpose for the first time in their species' history. The hegemony expected an answer in 5 more days. They were going to get one that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. On the 3rd day, Earth's response began to take shape in ways the hegemony never anticipated. While their surveillance focused on major population centers expecting riots and submission ceremonies, the real work was happening in places they couldn't detect. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert, an international team had assembled the most powerful quantum computer ever built. Dr. Amara Okafor, a brilliant physicist from Nigeria, led the team that was about to crack the alien communication protocols completely. We're not just tracing their signal back to its source, she explained to the Global Defense Council through encrypted channels. We're learning how their entire fleet communicates. Every ship, every system, every piece of technology they have is connected through quantum entanglement networks. And now we have access. The breakthrough was staggering. Humanity was about to know everything about the hegemony fleet, their weapons, their defenses, their command structure, and most importantly, their weaknesses. But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. They're not as united as they pretend to be, reported Dr. Singh from the analysis team. The fleet has ships from dozens of different species, each with their own technology and communication systems. They've basically bolted different alien technologies together and hoped it would work. Meanwhile, the world's most advanced manufacturing facilities were working around the clock. 3D printers in hidden bunkers were creating components for weapons that existed only in theoretical papers days before. Automated factories were retooling to produce materials with properties that pushed the boundaries of known physics. In orbit, what appeared to be routine satellite maintenance was actually the most complex military operation ever attempted. Astronauts from multiple nations worked together to convert communication satellites into kinetic weapon platforms. Space stations that supposedly conducted peaceful research were revealing hidden weapon systems that had been installed. During their construction, the hegemony's sensors detected increased human space activity but dismissed it as panicked attempts to flee the planet. They couldn't comprehend that a primitive species might actually be preparing to fight back against impossible odds. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, commander of the secretly militarized International Space Station, coordinated with her crew as they prepared what would become humanity's first line of defense. The new railgun systems are online, reported her weapons officer, formerly a communications specialist whose real training had been classified for years. We have 16 kinetic penetrators ready for launch, each with enough energy to crack a small moon. But the most crucial development was happening in the realm of strategy and psychology. Earth's greatest military minds weren't just planning an attack. They were planning to break the hegemony's will to fight. General Sarah Kim from South Korea's Cyber Warfare Division had made a discovery that changed everything. Their species psychology reports show they've never faced real resistance. Every planet they've conquered surrendered after seeing their fleet. They're used to easy victories against demoralized opponents. Which means, added Dr. Chen from the psychological warfare team, They've never developed tactics for fighting an enemy that refuses to give up. Their entire military doctrine is based on intimidation, not actual combat experience. This revelation led to a complete restructuring of Earth's defense strategy. Instead of trying to match the aliens' overwhelming firepower, humanity would use tactics the hegemony had never encountered. Guerrilla warfare adapted for space combat. Small, fast ships would be launched from hidden facilities around the world. Rather than engaging in direct combat, they would strike at communication relays, supply lines, and isolated vessels. Each attack would be designed to create maximum psychological impact while revealing minimum information about Earth's true capabilities. The plan was audacious in its scope. Simultaneous strikes would hit hegemony forces across the solar system. While their main fleet focused on Earth, smaller human forces would attack their supply bases on captured asteroids and mining operations on the outer planets that they had assumed were secret. But perhaps the most brilliant aspect of the plan was its timing. The attack would begin exactly at the moment the hegemony expected Earth's surrender broadcast. "They'll be listening for our submission," explained Admiral Foster during the final planning session. "Instead, they'll hear the sound of their ships exploding. The psychological impact alone should shatter their confidence." As the third day ended, Earth's preparations entered their final phase. Weapons were locked onto targets. Strike teams were in position. Communication networks were ready to broadcast humanity's real response to the galaxy. What the hegemony didn't know was that Earth had allies they'd never suspected. Deep space monitoring stations had detected other species watching the confrontation with interest. Some were former hegemony subjects who had been forced into submission. Others were free civilizations that had managed to stay hidden from hegemony expansion. Encrypted messages had been sent to these civilizations, along with detailed plans of the coming attack. If humanity could prove that the hegemony could be defeated, these other species might join the fight for galactic freedom. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. In 4 more days, the hegemony expected Earth's surrender. Instead, they would face something they had never encountered in 5,000 years of conquest. A species that responded to threats by becoming more dangerous, not less. Earth was ready to give the galaxy a lesson in human nature that would be remembered for millennia. The 4th day brought revelations that would change the course of the coming battle. Dr. Yuki Sato, working with the International Quantum Research Team, made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the global defense network. "The hegemony ships aren't just vulnerable during shield rotation," she announced during the emergency scientific briefing. "They're running their entire fleet on what amounts to a single quantum network. If we can inject the right virus into their system, we could potentially take control of their own weapons." The implications were staggering. Instead of simply defending Earth or launching counterattacks, humanity might be able to turn the hegemony's overwhelming firepower against itself. But the plan required precise timing and a level of coordination that had never been attempted before. Meanwhile, reports were coming in from unexpected sources. The hegemony's conquered species, long thought to be completely suppressed, were secretly sending intelligence to Earth through quantum channels that their oppressors couldn't detect. "The Zephyrians have been waiting 300 years for someone to challenge the hegemony," reported Commander Jackson from the newly formed Alien Relations Division. "They've maintained hidden resistance networks across 17 star systems. If we can prove the hegemony can be defeated, they're ready to revolt." Similar messages arrived from dozens of other subjugated species. The Crystalline Collective, the Void Swimmers, the Hive Minds of Sector 7, all had been secretly preparing for an opportunity to strike back at their oppressors. Earth's coming battle would be the signal they'd been waiting for. But the most shocking intelligence came from within the hegemony fleet itself. Several species serving in their military were not volunteers but conscripts, forced to fight for the regime that had conquered their homeworlds. They had been waiting for any sign of effective resistance to switch sides. This changed everything about Earth's strategy. Instead of fighting a united enemy fleet, they would be facing a force held together only by fear and habit. The psychological warfare component of the plan became even more crucial. Dr. Alexandra Petrov, Earth's leading expert in interspecies psychology, worked with her team to craft messages that would be broadcast during the attack. These weren't threats or demands for surrender. They were invitations to freedom, We're going to offer them something the hegemony never has, she explained. Choice. The freedom to decide their own fate instead of having it dictated by their superiors. The messages were carefully crafted to appeal to each known species in the hegemony fleet. Some emphasized honor and warrior codes that had been suppressed under alien rule. Others focused on scientific cooperation and the sharing of knowledge. All carried the same basic promise, that Earth welcomed allies, not subjects. As night fell on the fourth day, the final components of humanity's response were falling into place. Hidden launch sites across the planet were armed and ready. Strike teams were positioned near their targets. The quantum virus that could potentially subvert alien systems was loaded and ready for deployment. But perhaps the most important preparation was happening in the hearts and minds of humanity itself. Across the globe, people weren't cowering in fear or preparing for surrender. They were preparing for war with a determination that would have terrified the hegemony if they had truly understood it. In New York, London, Tokyo, Cairo, Mumbai, São Paulo, and 1,000 other cities, ordinary people were doing extraordinary things. Engineers were volunteering to manually target alien ships if automated systems failed. Doctors were preparing to treat wounds from weapons they'd never seen. Teachers were recording lessons for children who might grow up in a very different galaxy. Most importantly, humanity was discovering something about itself that the aliens couldn't comprehend. When faced with extinction, humans didn't become desperate or chaotic. They became focused. They became unified. They became dangerous. The hegemony's psychological profiles of humanity were based on observations of individual conflicts and localized disasters. They had never seen the species face a threat that endangered everyone equally. They couldn't understand that the same characteristics they viewed as primitive, competitiveness, aggression, tribal loyalty, could be redirected toward a common external enemy. Supreme Commander Vorthak reviewed the latest reports from his intelligence operatives with growing frustration. They still report unusual military coordination among the humans. Our deep cover agents insist the species is preparing for some form of organized resistance. His chief science officer, a tentacled creature from the mollusk systems, highlighted energy readings from Earth's surface. Commander, we're detecting power buildups at several locations. The signatures suggest they may be charging weapon systems. Vorthak's dismissive gesture sent ripples through his forearms. Impossible. We have observed their technology. Their most powerful weapons couldn't penetrate our point defense systems, much less our main shields. They are probably powering their communication networks to broadcast their surrender. What the hegemony didn't realize was that Earth's real weapons weren't the ones they had observed. The missiles, fighters, and energy cannons that filled public military displays were civilian technology compared to what was hidden in classified facilities around the world. Humanity had learned long ago that the most effective weapons were the ones your enemy didn't know existed. Tomorrow the hegemony would discover just how much they didn't know about the species they had so casually threatened with extinction. The countdown had reached its final phase. In 3 days the galaxy would witness something unprecedented, not just humanity's refusal to surrender, but their transformation into something their enemies couldn't understand or predict. Earth was about to give the universe a lesson in why humans had survived everything their dangerous homeworld had thrown at them. The real war was about to begin. The 5th day marked the beginning of what would become known across the galaxy as the Great Turning. While the hegemony fleet maintained their positions around Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority, humanity was about to demonstrate why they had become the dominant species on one of the most hostile planets in known space. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled leaders of Earth in the emergency United Nations session. Behind her, a holographic display showed the hegemony fleet in perfect detail. Every ship, every weapon, every defensive system mapped and analyzed. We've done something that no species in hegemony history has ever accomplished, she announced. We've turned their own surveillance network against them. Right now, we know more about their fleet than they do. The intelligence was devastating to hegemony operational security. Earth knew which ships carried the most experienced crews, which vessels had outdated weapon systems, and most crucially, which species among their forces were most likely to defect if given the opportunity. The hegemony's greatest weakness isn't technological, explained General Thompson. It's sociological. They've built their entire empire on forced cooperation. between species that hate each other almost as much as they hate their oppressors. The plan that had emerged from 5 days of unprecedented global cooperation was audacious beyond anything attempted in human history. Rather than simply trying to fight the hegemony fleet, Earth would attempt to fracture it from within, while simultaneously demonstrating to the galaxy that the seemingly invincible empire could be defeated. In secret facilities around the world, the final preparations were underway. Captain Maria Santos, formerly of the International Space Station, now commanded a fleet of vessels that officially didn't exist. Hidden launch sites revealed ships that had been disguised as commercial satellites and deep space probes. Strike Force Alpha is ready, she reported through quantum-encrypted channels. 37 vessels armed with kinetic penetrators and quantum disruption devices. We're targeting their command ship and primary communication relays. Similar reports came in from teams positioned throughout the solar system. Strike Force Beta was ready to hit supply ships in the asteroid belt. Gamma Force would target the monitoring stations the hegemony had secretly established on Mars. Delta Force, comprised of Earth's most advanced stealth ships, would attempt the most audacious mission of all, infiltrating the hegemony's main fleet to plant the quantum virus directly into their central command systems. But the most important element of the plan wasn't military. It was diplomatic. Earth's message to the galaxy would be broadcast simultaneously with the attack, offering alliance to any species willing to fight for their freedom. Dr. Alexandra Petrov made final adjustments to the transmission that would accompany humanity's response. "We're not just declaring war on the hegemony," she explained to her team. "We're declaring independence for the entire galaxy." The message was crafted with care that would have impressed the most skilled diplomats. It acknowledged the suffering of conquered species, offered hope for liberation, and promised that Earth sought allies, not subjects. Most importantly, it demonstrated something the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia, a species that chose to fight impossible odds rather than accept subjugation. As the 5th day ended, reports began arriving that changed everything. The Quantum Communications Network had detected responses from across the galaxy. Dozens of species were expressing interest in Earth's proposal. Some offered intelligence about hegemony weaknesses. Others promised coordinated uprisings when the fighting began. The most significant response came from the Zephyrian resistance movement. "We have ships," their leader transmitted, "hidden for 3 centuries, waiting. We will strike when you give the signal." Similar messages arrived from the Crystalline Collective, the void swimmers and species whose names humanity had never heard before. The galaxy, it turned out, was a powder keg waiting for someone brave or crazy enough to light the fuse. Supreme Commander Vorthak received increasingly disturbing reports from his intelligence network. Human activity was intensifying rather than decreasing. Energy signatures suggested major weapon systems were being charged. Most puzzling of all, his deep cover agents reported that humans seemed to be preparing for celebration rather than surrender. "Perhaps they planned some sort of ritual before accepting our terms," suggested his intelligence chief. "Some species engage in ceremonial behaviors when facing cultural extinction." Vorthak was less certain. His review of human historical data showed a species that had never responded to threats in predictable ways. But the idea that such a primitive civilization might actually choose to fight the hegemony was beyond his ability to comprehend. "Increase surveillance," he ordered, "and prepare the demonstration weapon. If they refuse our generous terms, we will need to make an example that other systems will remember." What Vorthak didn't know was that his demonstration weapon, a planet cracker designed to split Earth's crust and boil its oceans, had already been identified and targeted by Earth's defense forces. When the time came, it would become humanity's first trophy of war. The countdown entered its final phase. In 48 hours, the hegemony expected Earth's surrender. Instead, they would witness the beginning of the largest galactic uprising in recorded history. Earth wouldn't just survive their ultimatum, they would use it as the catalyst to liberate half the galaxy. The age of the hegemony was ending. The age of galactic freedom was about to begin. And it would start with 8 billion humans saying 2 words that would echo across the stars: no surrender. The 6th day dawned with Earth poised on the edge of either extinction or the greatest victory in human history. Across the planet, Millions of people who had worked tirelessly for 6 days made final preparations for what would come next. The unity that had emerged in response to alien threats was unlike anything in human history. In the command center, buried beneath the Swiss Alps, representatives from every nation on Earth monitored the final countdown. Banks of quantum computers tracked the positions of every ship in the hegemony fleet. Communication arrays stood ready to broadcast humanity's response to both the aliens and the hidden resistance networks across the galaxy. Admiral Foster reviewed the tactical displays one final time. All strike forces report ready. We have confirmed targeting solutions on every major hegemony vessel. The quantum virus is loaded and ready for deployment. Most importantly, our alien allies are standing by. The breakthrough had come just hours before, direct contact with resistance cells in the hegemony fleet itself. Conscript species who had been forced to serve their oppressors were ready to sabotage their own ships at the moment Earth's attack began. The hegemony's greatest strength, their massive fleet, was about to become their greatest liability. Dr. Chen stepped forward to address the global command structure. The psychological analysis is complete. The hegemony's entire military doctrine is based on intimidation and overwhelming force. They've never faced an opponent who could hurt them. When our attack begins, the shock alone should fracture their command structure. But Earth's plan went far beyond simple military victory. The quantum virus being prepared for injection into alien systems would do more than disable their weapons. It would broadcast the coordinates of every secret hegemony installation to their enemies throughout the galaxy. Species that had been hiding from alien expansion would suddenly know where to strike. We're not just fighting for Earth, explained Dr. Petrov during the final briefing. We're lighting a beacon that will guide every oppressed species in the galaxy to freedom. When this is over, the political map of known space will be completely redrawn. The most audacious part of the plan involved the hegemony's own planet-killer weapon. Rather than simply destroying it, Earth's engineers had devised a way to capture and redirect its massive energy output. When fired at Earth, the weapon would instead punch a hole through space-time that would strand the hegemony fleet in an isolated region of space, while Earth's allies moved in to liberate their homeworlds. As evening approached, final messages began arriving from resistance movements across the galaxy. The Zephyrians confirmed that their hidden fleet was ready to emerge from the gas giant, where they had concealed it for centuries. The Crystalline Collective had armed their mining ships and prepared to seize the asteroid bases that produced resources for the hegemony war machine. Most significantly, 3 species that had successfully hidden from hegemony expansion offered to join the fight. Their fresh ships and crews would provide the reinforcements needed to turn a desperate defense into a war of liberation. Supreme Commander Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, reviewing preparations for what he expected to be a routine acceptance of surrender. His communications officers had prepared to receive Earth's submission broadcast. His weapon systems were charged and ready to demonstrate hegemony power if the humans showed any sign of defiance. "All fleet elements report ready, Commander," announced his tactical officer. "The planet killer is charged and targeted. If they refuse our terms, we can begin sterilization procedures immediately." Vorthak nodded with satisfaction. In 5,000 years of conquest, no species had ever rejected the hegemony's ultimatum once they saw the fleet assembled against them. He expected this primitive civilization to follow the same pattern of submission that had brought half the galaxy under alien rule. What he couldn't know was that his fleet was about to face something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that became more dangerous when threatened, not less. Earth's response would shatter assumptions about warfare, diplomacy, and the very nature of civilization that the hegemony had held for millennia. In hidden bases around the world, strike teams made final equipment checks. On disguised ships throughout the solar system, crews prepared for the most important battle in human history. In command centers buried deep underground, the greatest military minds of Earth's history coordinated an operation of staggering complexity. But perhaps the most important preparation was happening in the minds of humanity itself. 8 billion people were about to send a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations. That message wasn't just defiance. It was an invitation to every oppressed species in known space to join them in creating a different kind of future. The clock ticked toward midnight, Greenwich Mean Time. In 12 hours, the hegemony expected Earth's surrender. Instead, they would receive humanity's gift to the galaxy, proof that even the mightiest tyranny could be overthrown by those willing to risk everything for freedom. The final day was about to begin. The seventh day arrived with the galaxy holding its breath. Across known space, countless species watched to see whether Earth would submit to the hegemony's ultimatum or dare the impossible, resistance against the most powerful military force in galactic history. At precisely noon, Greenwich Mean Time, every communication device on Earth activated simultaneously. But instead of Supreme Commander Vorthak's expected surrender broadcast, the galaxy heard something that would change everything. President Maria Santos appeared on screens across the planet, her voice calm but filled with unmistakable determination. People of Earth and beings across the galaxy who dream of freedom, today we give our answer to those who would enslave us. The broadcast wasn't just reaching Earth, through the quantum communication network that had been hijacked from the hegemony itself. The message was being transmitted to every corner of known space, reaching resistance movements, hidden civilizations, and subjugated species who had waited centuries for this moment. We are humanity, Santos continued, and we choose freedom. We choose the right to determine our own destiny. We choose to stand with any species willing to fight for these same principles. Our answer to the hegemony is simple: no surrender, no submission, no compromise with tyranny. At that moment, the most complex military operation in human history began. Across the solar system, ships that had been hidden as asteroids, satellites, and space debris revealed their true nature. The hegemony sensors screamed warnings as dozens of vessels appeared from nowhere, their weapons already locked onto alien targets. Strike Force Alpha, led by Captain Santos, launched their attack on the hegemony flagship. Kinetic penetrators traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched through shields that had never been breached in 5,000 years of warfare. The subjugator, pride of the alien fleet, found itself crippled and burning as its crew struggled to comprehend what was happening. Simultaneously, the quantum virus infiltrated the hegemony communication network. Within seconds, it had spread to every ship in the fleet, not only disabling their weapons but broadcasting the locations of secret bases and installations to resistance movements throughout the galaxy. Supreme Commander Vorthak watched in stunned disbelief as his supposedly invincible fleet began tearing itself apart. Ships crewed by conscripted species turned their weapons on their oppressors. Communication networks collapsed as the virus corrupted every system it touched. Most shocking of all, planets that had been considered pacified for centuries suddenly exploded into open rebellion. Impossible, he whispered, as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian resistance had emerged from hiding with a fleet of advanced warships. The Crystalline Collective was seizing hegemony mining operations. 3 previously unknown civilizations had declared war on the alien empire and were moving to attack border systems, but the most devastating blow came from Earth's capture of the hegemony's planet-killer weapon. Instead of destroying Earth as planned, the massive device was turned against the alien fleet itself. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia found themselves trapped in an artificial space-time bubble, cut off from reinforcements and facing an enemy they couldn't understand. As the battle raged around Earth, Dr. Chen coordinated the most important part of humanity's plan, the liberation broadcast. Using the captured hegemony communication network, Earth transmitted detailed intelligence about alien military installations, resource centers, and government facilities to every resistance movement in the galaxy. Today, no species stands alone against oppression, she announced to the countless beings listening across space. Today we prove that freedom is stronger than fear, that unity is more powerful than tyranny, that even the mightiest empire can fall when people choose to stand together. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Systems that had been under hegemony control for centuries declared independence. Species that had been forced into military service defected en masse. The galaxy erupted into the largest coordinated uprising in recorded history. On Earth, the mood was one of cautious celebration, mixed with grim determination. The battle around their world was won, but the war for galactic freedom had just begun. Humanity had proven that the hegemony could be defeated, but now they had to help build something better to replace it. Admiral Foster addressed the global command structure as reports continued pouring in from across space. 17 star systems have declared independence. 43 resistance movements are coordinating attacks on hegemony strongholds. Most importantly, 6 major species have offered to join our alliance. The offer was unprecedented. Instead of replacing the hegemony with another empire, Earth was proposing something the galaxy had never seen: a voluntary confederation where each species maintained autonomy while cooperating for mutual defense and advancement. In the months that followed, historians would mark the 7th day as the beginning of the galactic liberation. The hegemony's empire, built over millennia, collapsed in a matter of weeks as world after world joined the growing alliance of free species. Supreme Commander Vorthak, captured during the battle, was taken to Earth for the galaxy's first war crimes tribunal. In his final testimony, he expressed something that would become famous across known space. We thought we understood warfare. We thought we understood conquest. But humans taught us something we never knew existed: that some species become more dangerous when you threaten their freedom, not less. Earth's response to the alien ultimatum had indeed shocked the galaxy, but not in the way the hegemony expected. Instead of fear and submission, humanity had offered hope and liberation. Instead of accepting subjugation, they had chosen to lead a revolution that transformed the political landscape of space forever. The galaxy learned that day why humans had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless disasters on their dangerous homeworld. They learned what happened when a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain faced extinction. Most importantly, they learned that sometimes the most powerful response to a threat isn't surrender or even resistance. It's an invitation to others to join you in building something better. Earth's thankful reply to the hegemony's dire threat had indeed shocked the galaxy. It shocked them out of millennia of oppression and into an age of freedom that would last for generations to come.